The laughter began before the bride even reached the car. Emily stood outside the grand wedding hall in her white wedding gown, holding a small bouquet of roses while dozens of wealthy guests gathered around her. Crystal chandeliers glittered through the glass doors behind them, luxury cars lined the driveway, and everyone seemed dressed to impress. But there was one problem. Her groom was nowhere to be seen. Emily checked her phone again. No message. No call. Her father looked worried. The ceremony starts in 20 minutes. Where is Daniel? Emily forced a smile. He'll come. Just then, an old silver sedan pulled up in front of the hotel. The car was scratched, dusty, and clearly out of place among the expensive Mercedes and BMW surrounding it. A thin man in a faded driver's uniform stepped out. "Miss Emily?" he asked politely. "Yes? I'm here to pick you up." Everyone became silent for a second. Then someone laughed. A bridesmaid covered her mouth. "You're joking, right?" Another guest whispered loudly, "Is this some kind of wedding prank?" The driver looked embarrassed but remained respectful. "Your transportation was changed," he explained. "I was asked to bring you safely to the ceremony." Emily looked at the old car. Then she looked at the expensive vehicles around her. Her cheeks turned red. One of the guests laughed. "A bride arriving in that? This is unbelievable." The driver lowered his eyes. He was used to people judging him. His name was David. For the past 3 years, everyone who saw him in his old uniform assumed he was poor, unsuccessful, and unimportant. But they didn't know the truth. David wasn't merely a driver. He was the owner of one of the largest transportation companies in the country. He was also the man Emily was supposed to marry. Only Emily had never seen his real identity. Daniel, the name she knew him by, had deliberately kept his wealth secret. He wanted to know whether she loved him for who he was, not for his money. And today, he had arranged one final test. Emily looked at David carefully. "Are you sure you're supposed to take me?" "Yes, ma'am." Before she could answer, an elderly woman carrying a tray of wedding gifts accidentally dropped several boxes near the stairs. Without hesitation, David rushed over. "Please don't move," he said. He carefully picked everything up and checked each package. "Are you hurt?" The woman shook her head. "No, dear. I'm fine." David smiled. "Good. Let me carry these for you." He carried the heavy boxes inside. Nobody laughed this time. Emily watched him quietly. There was something familiar about the way he treated people. Kind. Humble. Gentle. When he returned, Emily smiled. "Thank you." David nodded. "You're welcome." She lifted her gown slightly and stepped into the old sedan. Behind her, the guests continued whispering. "She must be disappointed. Imagine being picked up for your wedding in that car. She deserves better." Emily heard every word. But she didn't respond. As David drove toward the ceremony, Emily noticed how carefully he drove. After several minutes, she asked, "Do you know the groom?" David smiled faintly. "Very well." "Is he nervous?" "Extremely." Emily laughed. "Then tell him he has nothing to worry about." David looked at her through the mirror. "I will." When they arrived at the ceremony venue, Emily stepped out. The guests were already waiting. But something strange happened. The moment David walked inside, several security guards straightened. Then the hotel manager hurried toward him. "Mr. Carter, we're ready. The board members are waiting for you." The laughter disappeared. Emily froze. "Mr. Carter?" David turned around. The man everyone thought was a poor driver calmly removed his faded cap. "I suppose it's time you knew." Emily stared at him. David smiled. My name is Daniel Carter. The guests gasped. He continued, I'm the owner of Carter Global Transport. Silence filled the room. Someone whispered, the billionaire? Another guest looked at the old sedan outside. That was his car? Daniel smiled. I wanted to arrive as an ordinary driver today because I wanted to remember something. He looked at Emily. I wanted to remember that wealth should never decide how we treat people. Emily's eyes filled with tears. You were testing me? Daniel shook his head. No. I was testing myself. He took her hands. I needed to know that when life became difficult, I would have a partner who respected people regardless of their clothes, cars, or bank accounts. Emily smiled through her tears. I didn't care about the car. I know. She looked toward the guests. And I don't care about the money either. Daniel smiled. That is exactly why I love you. Then something unexpected happened. The elderly woman David had helped earlier walked toward them. She held out one of the gift boxes. I saw what you did, she said softly. You didn't know anyone was watching. Daniel smiled. That was the point. She placed her hand on Emily's shoulder. You found a good man. Emily looked at Daniel. I did. The wedding ceremony began. But before walking down the aisle, Daniel stopped. He turned toward the guests. I want to say something. Everyone listened. Today, many people laughed at an old car and assumed the man driving it had no value. But kindness doesn't come with a price tag. Respect doesn't require wealth. And a person's clothes can never tell you the size of their heart. Nobody moved. Daniel continued. I'm fortunate enough to have money. But the greatest wealth in my life is standing beside me. Emily squeezed his hand. The crowd applauded. Some of the guests who had laughed earlier approached Daniel afterward and apologized. Daniel accepted every apology without anger. It's okay, he said. Just remember next time you see someone who looks poor, treat them like they're rich in something you cannot see. That evening, Emily and Daniel left the wedding together. But they didn't leave in a luxury limousine. They left in the same old silver sedan. Emily sat beside him, laughing as they drove through the city lights. Daniel looked at her. Still okay with my car? She smiled. I love the driver. He laughed. And the billionaire? She leaned against his shoulder. I never married the billionaire. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Then who did you marry? The kind man who stopped to help an old woman when everyone else was laughing. Daniel smiled. And as the old car disappeared into the night, the people watching finally understood the lesson they had missed that morning. Sometimes the poorest-looking person in the room carries the richest heart. And sometimes, the greatest act of kindness is simply treating someone with dignity before you know what they own.